I want to set the record straight and go through all the do's and don'ts for your neck pain caused by cervical spondylosis, degenerative joint disease, or osteoarthritis. I'm going to break this video down into 3 parts. First, getting your pain to centralize, because when you have neck pain, the pain pattern typically refers to other parts of your body. When I'm talking about pain, I'm talking about that frustrating pain that starts in your neck and sometimes into the back of your head and may continue around to your forehead and might cause headaches, or as it gets worse, you get that irritating pain and numbness and tingling into your shoulder, it goes down to your arm and your fingers, and when it gets really bad, you get that awful weakness in your hand and arms, and you just can't sleep. So very importantly, I want to talk about pain relief first. Secondly, I want to go through some techniques and exercises to deal with the root of your neck pain caused by cervical spondylosis, degenerative joint disease, or osteoarthritis. And later in this video, I'm going to go through some key items that you must do every day to keep your neck pain at bay. Okay, let's centralize your pain. To remove your referred pain back to your neck region to make this condition much easier to treat. Now, let me take a break here for a second. Most people on the internet are teaching stretches and exercises for neck pain that are not exactly wrong, but they're certainly not right either. Now, you have to be careful and you have to discern, because this condition can very easily become more inflamed and irritated, thus creating a more chronic condition. Let me explain to you why this is the case. In order for you to understand what stretches are good versus not so good, we need to start with some simple anatomy, because ultimately you really need to become the expert of you. And I trust that you want to dig down a little deeper to correct your neck pain. And so it's going to require your volition. So for me to be completely thorough, we're going to need to understand how your anatomy works. Not a whole lot, just enough for you to intuitively understand how to resolve your neck pain. Okay, so let's start with ideal, and then we're going to go into what the problem actually is for these exercises. So if we look at, here's a model of a human spine. Here's the pelvis down here. Here's the head up here. The head roughly should weigh 5 kilos. It should be the weight of a bowling ball. Now, ideally, if this was a perfect spine, we'd have a neck curve, mid-back curve, low back curve, and pelvic curve. And if this was a human, the ears should line up perfectly over the shoulders, the hips, the knees, the ankles. The weight then is dispersed into the muscles and not into the bones, the joints, the discs. We are in a sedentary world today. We're sitting more so now than ever. And you might say, well, I exercise. Well, let me tell you this. Even if you're sitting 3, 4, 5 hours a day, 6 hours, 8 hours, even if you exercise every single day of the week for an hour, you're not going to undo poor sitting techniques. And we're going to get into this later, and don't worry, we're going to show you real simply how you can beneficially sit. But here's the issue, and in your mind's eye, I want you really to get this, because as we go into these exercises, you really have to understand the problem. Now, if you're sitting like most people today, with the low back going straight, the head has to go forward. The head translates forward. And according to Kapanji, and I'm going to put this link down below in his book, The Anatomy is a Physiology of the Joints, every inch that the head goes forward, now again, your head weighs 5 kilos, so if your head goes forward, you're going to add an additional 5 kilo per inch. So think about this. You're sitting in a position and you're holding your head forward, working on your phone, your computer, and you're not understanding, but you're putting 10 kilos of pressure in the y-axis. That's a problem, but that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is as the head goes forward, you're no longer engaging your muscles, you start engaging your joints, and you start breaking down. And degeneration, spondylosis and arthritis and degenerative joint disease is nothing more than wear and tear and degeneration due to poor posture. So every inch your head goes forward, the weight starts going up exponentially. In fact, if your head's 2 inches in front of your head, in front of your body, you're putting 15 kilos of pressure in the y-axis repetitively. So you really have to understand that first. That is the problem. To centralize your pain, we need to look at the anatomy and look at what a healthy, normal neck should look like versus what is the problem. So if we look at an ideal neck, you see here a nice C curve. The bones in the neck, there's typically 7, and they call them vertebra. Now, the big bony part is called the body. Between the body are these discs, and these discs are pretty much shock absorbers. Behind the body and the discs is the spinal cord and the nerve roots. And these nerve roots go to every organ, every cell, every tissue. And so if your neck is in a perfect C shape, like this position here, with the head up here, here's the front, here's the back, the weight is being dispersed into the muscles, the front muscles, the anterior chain muscles, and the posterior chain. And gravity has very little, if not any effect, because about 25% of your weight loading is going into your disc, which is normal, and these big joints back here called the facet joints. Now, if you're like most people and you're sitting, even if your head's only 1 inch forward, again, your head weighs 5 kilo, now we're putting 10 kilos of pressure in the y-axis, we're compressing down on the head onto your joints. The big problem here is that once your head starts going forward, you disengage these core muscles, these intrinsic muscles. They stop working, and the load starts getting dispersed into the discs and the joints, and it starts causing breakdown and it causes degeneration. Let me just give you a better look at how this looks. So if we look at an ideal spinal bone, here's the body, vertebra. Now this is the low back, but you get the idea, you get the picture here. Here's the disc, and here's what a nice healthy disc should look like. Over time, let's say if you're sitting in bad posture for about a year, it starts breaking down. You might think, hey, no problem. I get up in the morning a little bit stiff. I'm just going to exercise. No problem, right? As time moves on, now as it starts breaking down, because in the y-axis you're now loading your discs and your joints instead of your muscles. Now you start getting big problems. You start getting these bone spurs in between the disc. Between the bones is a big problem because that's where the nerves come out. So think about your brain as the computer of your body. There's 100 trillion cells in your body, and they send the messages from your brain down this tube of bones called the spinal cord, and between these bones are these nerves, and these nerves go through every organ, every cell, every tissue. And so the nerves in the neck go to, let's say, the thyroid, they go to your heart, your lungs. And so if you start to get degeneration and the nerves start getting encroached or pinched, coming out between those bones, think about in terms of function. We always talk about pain and how you feel, but more importantly, how are you functioning? Because what is that doing to your overall health? Do you know there are over 10,000 studies now linking poor posture to over a dozen chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, depression, you name it. And this is the cause of it. So you really have to understand as we do these exercises to start getting the pain to start centralizing, the goal is to get that nice C curve back. We can't be doing anything where you're translating your head forward. We need to stop before we do any exercise and think about your posture. Okay, so we have the discs and the body of the spine in the front. We have the joints and the nerves in the back. And so the first exercise, if any exercise where you go into what we call cervical extension, meaning you're bringing your head back into extension, think about that. You're actually making it worse. Why? Because you're compressing down on those nerve roots and the IVF, the little hole where those nerves come out. You're compressing down on that. And you see this a lot. You see people tell you, if you have a neck problem, go into cervical extension. It's really a bad idea. And now you understand why, because of the anatomy. What you want to do is you want to do the opposite. You want to go into what we call flexion. We'll go to flexion. But before you go into flexion, you want to start with a chin tuck. Now, a chin tuck is something you could do all day long. How do you do it? Just take two fingers, push your chin back in like so, as you can see. And what you want to feel is the muscles at the base of your skull, the suboccipital muscles, you want to feel those tractioning. Now, anytime you need to look down throughout the day, do a chin tuck. This way you become a black belt at this. Through repetition of doing this over and over and over again all day long, you will start developing good habits. And going into flexion with a chin tuck is probably one of the best ways to centralize your neck pain. Another exercise I recommend you stay away from is lateral flexion. In other words, bringing your ear to your shoulder, pulling down in this position like so. Again, what you're doing is you're compressing down on the IVF, you're compressing down on those nerve roots, you're compressing down on the disc, and it's something you should avoid. Just grab something, a belt. I prefer doing this exercise standing because you want to engage the kinetic chain throughout your body. Now, if you're going to stand, what you want to do is make sure your feet are pointing straight ahead, your legs are nice and straight, and your feet are shoulder width apart. Your knees are slightly bent, and if we look in the side, your ears line up over your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your ankles, and therefore your weight is being dispersed into your muscles and not into your discs and joints, which got you your neck problem in the first place. Okay, so you take this towel, and two things. We want to bring our elbows forward, and we want to just push down on our shoulders while we do this as we're pulling our head forward. We're going to be bringing our head into flexion, but before we do it, we want to do the chin tuck first, bring our head into flexion, and we're pushing down the shoulders. It's actually three things. So here we go. Make sure your posture's right. Four things, actually. Get your posture right. Ears are lined up over your shoulders, your hips, your knees are slightly bent. You can feel the weight going into your quads, your hamstring, your butt muscles, which is good because all movement should come from your hips. We take that, in this case, it's a t-shirt. I'm going to tuck my chin in first, and I'm going to drop my shoulders down second, and I'm going to push my head into flexion third. And we want to hold that there for about 30 seconds. And when you're doing this, try to relax, and feel that IVF, those nerve roots decompressing. Great way to centralize your pain. Okay, now we're on to part two. We want to get into the root of the problem. And so at the root is the nerve root and the disc. So we want to start decompressing the disc first. Second of all, what happens is if you're walking around with a poor posture, head translation going forward, chances are your muscles in the front, the anterior flexor muscles are going weak. So we want to strengthen those. So the first thing is we're going to start with your disc. And again, so we're going to take our towel or whatever you have, and we're going to put it behind our head. Again, we're going to make sure our posture's right, make sure your feet are shoulder width apart, your knees are slightly bent, everything's relaxed. We're going to grab the towel, and we're going to tuck our chin in first. And then from this position, we're going to bring the towel down at the base of our neck, and we're going to pull up. So we can see that right there? We're actually, what we're doing is we're just tractioning, we're pulling the bones apart, and that helps suck the fluid and nutrients, the oxygen, and helps nutrify those discs, and it just brings life. It's like putting air back in your tires. So again, I'm going to make sure your posture's right, make sure your everything's aligned. We're going to take this towel, bring it down to the base of our neck, tuck our chin in, and we're just going to pull up, and wow, I could hear pop, 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 pop. It's a great way to decompress your disc. Okay, another good way of getting at the core of this problem is to get at the nerve roots. And let's pretend I have a neck problem on the left side here. Okay, I prefer doing this exercise seated. I think it's the best way to do this is in a seated position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to put it down on my bum, and I'm going to sit on my left hand. While I'm doing that, I'm going to bring the shoulder back on the left side, and I'm going to tuck my chin in. I'm going to take my right hand, bring it across my head, and I can do no damage here because my chin's tucked in, so I'm opening up those IVFs where those nerve roots are, so it's all beneficial. There's no problems here at all. You really can't hurt yourself. But if you do feel pain in this position, don't do it. Stop, okay? But what I'm going to do is tuck my chin in, take my right hand, bring it across my head, and what I'm looking for is my right pocket. So I'm going to pull my head down in this position, and what I'm doing is I'm just pulling out those nerve roots, the anterior scalene muscles, the sternocleidomastoid. I'm stretching those out, and you take it in that position, hold it there for about 30 seconds, and relax. And you could do this at work. You could do this all day long, and it feels so good. Okay, now that you know a little bit about your anatomy of your neck, and we talked about centralizing your pain and then working on the root cause of your pain, we really need to start talking about your lifestyle, because if you don't get your lifestyle right, why bother? It's just not going to go away. You're not going to, because it's what you do all day long. And our philosophy is if you get your standing, your sleeping, and your sitting right, you're good, because that's 99% of your day, right? Everybody says, show me some exercise, show me some stretch, and that's all well and fine. But why bother if you don't sit right, if you don't sleep right, if you don't stand right? So let's start with sitting. And sitting is the elephant in the room when it comes to neck problems. I'll tell you why. Because we were all told from a very formative year that we have the proper way sitting is with our legs parallel, our knees at 90 degrees, our hips at 90 degrees. But what that does to your body is it throws our head into a forward translation, like so. In this position, I am no longer using my muscles. My foundation muscles are just obsolete. I'm using my discs and my joints to sit. And over time, like I said, with the weight compressing down, it's going to cause degeneration and problems. And you're going to get neck herniations and pain, shoulder, down your arms, and so. So here's the rule of thumb. When you're sitting, you want to make sure, you want to sit as though you're, almost as if you're standing. You want to make sure your knees are always below your hips. How do you do that? Well, one thing is you could get something like this. This is an orthotic. This is an idea I came up with. We did a Kickstarter, which was successful here in Ireland. But it basically just sets your position like that. So it brings your hips above your knees, and it just sets you in a position where you're engaging your core muscles. You're pulling up on your transverse abdominis, your pelvic floor muscles, and your paraspinal muscles in the back. Relax. Your ears line up over your shoulders and hips. And you're actually engaging your muscles. You're working out all day long, and paradoxically, it feels much better. You think since you're using your muscles all day long, it's going to feel worse, but it actually feels great to sit in this position. If you don't have an orthotic, or if your seat can't tilt forward, just get to the edge of your chair and make sure your knees are down below your hips, and that should bring your alignment right back in the proper position. The more you do this, the better you're going to get at it. Think about a soft chair or a couch. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's an absolute terrible thing, because when you sit on that, you're actually going to go. Your body's going to go into a C curve. Your head's going to translate forward, and you're compressing down the disc. I don't care if you do all those exercises 100 times a day. It's not going to go away unless you get your sitting right. Your sleep is the most important part of your day, because if you don't get your sleep right, the rest of your day is shot. You have the absolute perfect opportunity to recover, recharge your batteries. If you're not sleeping right, if you have the wrong pillow, wrong mattress, you're not going to recover. If you have a neck issue, you're just never going to be right if you don't get your pillow and mattress right. So it's something a lot of people don't put a whole lot of thought in. It's not like you have to spend a lot of money either. You just got to get what's right for you. So a couple things about sleep. If you sleep on your stomach, that's a no-go. a no-go, especially if you have a neck problem, because you got to wrench your neck to breathe. And if you're torquing your neck all day long, you're compressing down those nerve roots, the discs, and you're going to just exacerbate your problem. So if you sleep on your stomach, it takes anywhere between 1 and 3 months to break that habit. Stick with it. You will break it. A lot of people will go to bed and they're frustrated because they get up in the morning, they're stiff, or they're tired. They could have slept 10 hours. It felt like 10 minutes, or they're on their third or fourth cup of coffee just to get through the day because they're just not sleeping right. So if you sleep on your side, what you want to do is you want to make sure your alignment's right. You want to sleep as though you're standing tall. So if your pillow's too high, your head's going to be coming up and you're going to be compressing down on those nerve roots and those discs on one side. If it's too low, just the opposite way, and it's not a good idea. So you want to make sure when you're sleeping that your spine is in perfect alignment like this. If you're a side sleeper, I recommend putting a pillow between your knees and keeping your knees slightly bent. In terms of purchasing a pillow, I would just do some effort, do some research. Here's something that I designed. This design is called the Dream Pillow. It comes from 30 years of thinking about or treating people with shoulder problems, neck problems, alignment issues, ear, jaw, breathing issues. And when we do our designs, we take all of our frustration and research and we put it into our product, and we try to fix a lot of issues. But a pillow should be, first of all, comfort. It should be absolutely comfortable. It should be nice and soft and comfortable. I like a pillow that cradles the neck like this, and it sets the alignment right, and it allows for breathing. It allows for comfort in the ear, the jaw, and it's just so when I hit the pillow, I'm asleep. And I'm not tossing and turning, I'm not scrunching up the pillow. You just want something that just feels beautiful. As far as mattresses, there's many different types of mattresses. There's PU foams, there's memory foam, there's coils, and there's natural latex. I prefer latex. I'm not a big fan of coils or PU foam or memory foam. I don't like sleeping hot. I like resiliency in my mattress, and I want something that has no chemicals in it. I want something that's non-toxic, eco-friendly, and biodegradable. And I think natural latex ticks all those boxes. And if you have a neck issue, I personally recommend getting a latex pillow and a latex mattress. For those of you who sleep on your back, you don't want your pillow too high or you don't want it too low, I do recommend, if you do sleep on your back, to use a pillow, but the pillow should be only about an inch or two thick. But you want your spine in a neutral position. And secondly, you should put a pillow underneath your knees, because when your knees are just like you're standing, if your knees are slightly flexed, you're going to relax your back or your paraspinal muscles. Okay, we went through sitting, we went through sleeping. Let's get into standing and moving. Now, this is going to be real simple, but it's not easy because it's something you have to keep at for literally 3 months before you really get it. 2 points I want to make. The first point is, if you have a neck problem, neck issue, chances are your head starts translating forward, which is the primary cause of this. And so when your head starts going forward, your shoulders start rounding, the shoulder blades start going out or start winging, and you start going into this position. And incidentally, I think this is why most people age, is because they start getting in this position like so, and it makes them look so, oh, it looks terrible. So you want to start reversing that. How do you do that? Real simple. Walk around with your thumbs up. Why? Because that's going to bring your shoulders back. Now listen, nobody's paying attention to you. Don't worry about it. People think, oh, I don't want to walk around like that because I look like a freak. No, nobody's paying attention. So just work on this. And again, through repetition, through patterning, you're going to start setting the position right. Okay? Number 2, when you're standing, make sure your knees are slightly bent. Now, I don't mean walking around like a chimpanzee. Just enough that you feel that your muscles, your quads, your hamstrings engaging. And so that's the hard part. I've heard like pro boxers put rubber bands around their knees, so that helps them engage the serratus anterior muscles and the internal, external oblique muscles. But it's a really good idea. This is what's really, really hard to do, is to keep your knees bent all the time. But over time, doing that, you're going to really develop great habits. Why would I have you bend your knees while you're moving all day long? Think about that. If your knees are unlocked, your spine unlocks. If your knees are just slightly bent, your alignment goes right into its natural position. So this is really cool. You don't have to think about your posture. All you have to think about is those 2 things. Put your hands back, your thumbs up in the air like this, and your knees slightly bent. And the more you do that, the more you're going to start developing great habits. I know personally, I had a neck herniation, and these were the things that really got me to the next level. And I'm 110% better today. I do appreciate and read all of your comments, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next video. Thank you, and take care.